Okay guys, today we're talking about inline spinners and the different styles and the different company manufacturers. The ones that we're going to cover today are Roostertail and Meps, and we have a bonus offering for you, one that I've never seen and never used, and that's the offering by Bass Pro Shop called the Nitro Thump. So we're going to take a look at each of them in their package. Then we're going to look at and talk about the different color offerings that the manufacturers have. And we're going to look at the different styles. We have regular inline spinners. We have inline spinners that are connected to plastics. And then we have deep diving or deep running inline spinners for a little deeper water. And we'll explain each one as we go through them and take a look at them. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let's look at the spinner baits and learn about the inline spinners. Okay, so here we go. We're going to take a look at the offerings in the Roostertail and the Meps. And as we can see, we have a whole lot of color choices. And with Meps, we have a couple of different styles. So we look forward to looking at all these. Now all of these are 1/4 ounce baits, and they all are inline spinners. As you can see with the Roostertails, we have several different colors. We have the white shad color, the chartreuse, the fire tiger. Then we have a trout color combo with the blue and pink instead of the green and orange. Then with the Meps, we have what's called the Comet Minnow, and this is a plastic bait with an inline spinner and 2 sets of hooks. Then we have the XD Ultra Deep from Meps, and as you can see, this is a weighted body with a bead, a feather tail with a mylar trailer on it. And we'll take a look at each one of these in depth as we open them. But these are all new and in the package, so no modifications have been made to them, and they're all ready to go. Okay, the first Roostertail we're going to look at, or inline spinner, is going to be the Roostertail. As you can see, it's a 1/4 ounce. They're all 1/4 ounces. I find this to be my personal best size to use for what I fish in Lake Lanier. As I go to other lakes, I'll probably use different sizes based off of what I'm fishing for. If I'm fishing small rivers and creeks, I'm probably going to drop down to the 1/32, 1/8 ounce. But for the reservoir, for Lake Lanier, for the panfish and the bass that I fish for, this one right here I find to be the best size. Now this one is in the white. They call it the white. It's white and silver. Imitates the shad as it's going through the water. This is a very productive color for me, especially for brim and crappie. And I like to catch a lot of very small spotted bass on this. And when I say small, I've caught spotted bass that were about the same size as this lure on these. Very aggressive fish, very fun to play with. But let's take a look at it. Let's open it up and let's see what a Roostertail really is. So Bubble packaging, fairly easy to open. Ooh, very sticky hooks. Now, as we see, try and get a close up on this. It's all just a single through wire that's twisted on this end. A little windy, hard to see this, and twisted on this end. One thing that I wish Roostertail did was to put a snap ring on their inline spinners, and what that would allow would be for easy hook changes. After a couple of seasons, especially even one season of hard use, these hooks either get very dull or they get rusted. The feathers will get frayed, pulled by the fish. I mean, these are very delicate feathers. They work really well in the water, but you know, it's a good thing these are fairly cheap because you're replacing them a lot. The blade is very nice for its size. You can see it's not a very thick blade. It's 1/16 of an inch, if that. It is concave, and it's stamped with the Roostertail. Oops, I think I got that upside down. Yeah, Roostertail there. We can see it. Now, some common issues that arise with the Roostertails, and pretty much I found with a lot of the inline spinners, especially the single wire. These wires, if you can see, are not really that heavy, and it's very easy to get them bent. You'll catch them on the underbrush, you'll catch them on things in the water, rocks, and these things will just start to get bent. You have to keep straightening them out. Eventually they get to the point to where it's not worth straightening them anymore, and again you wind up replacing them. The one thing that I have found with Roostertail, and this is why I prefer Roostertail as a brand, this body right here is pretty resilient. Whatever it's made out of, I'm not exactly sure, but I bounce these things off of rocks, and I usually wind up replacing these more because of the bent wire or hooks than I do because the body gets chewed up. This is actually probably one of the most resilient pieces of the whole thing. Now, one thing that I've done in the past, because as I said, I wish they had a split ring so that I could change the hooks easy. I have actually taken side cutters, and I have actually cut that off and put a split ring on it myself. It adds a little bit more weight. It does change the characteristics of how it comes through the water. As you can imagine, with the heavier, if I put a heavier hook on it or just adding the split ring, it will tend to make it tail heavy and pull through like this. When that happens, I usually don't see any change in being able to catch crappie or any kind of panfish, but I find that I don't catch as many bass, and I think it's because they're smart enough to know fish don't swim like this. So, but that is the Roostertail. Again, you can see it's just an inline spinner. The wire goes straight down the center, out the back, feather tied to the back, and the hook is looped on the end. very simple design and very effective. So, in fact, this is probably the first style of cast and retrieve bait that I started with when I was 5 or 6 years old, and first learning to bass fish. So, but this is the Roostertail, and again, this is 1/4 ounce. You can get them smaller, you can get them bigger. I believe they come up to 1 ounce. And yeah, as you notice, it's a very simple design. So next up, we're going to be looking at the Mepps lures, inline spinners, and this one is their Comet Minnow offering in a, I believe that's a rainbow trout. We'll take a look at it a little better when we open the package. So let's go ahead and open it. Packaging for inline spinners should be a little better because these things are actually very fragile with the wires. So here we go. This is the Mepps Comet Minnow, and according to the blade, I don't know if I can show it or not, it says it's a number 2 Comet. Now, while we're looking at the blade, if you'll notice, the stamping on it is a lot different than the Roostertail. And this one I would say is more of a rounded oblong, kind of like I would compare this to be a Colorado blade on a spinner versus on the Roostertail it was more elongated, like a willow leaf. So that's one difference. But two, you look right here, the through spinner, the wire, again, same gauge, is a standard gauge, standard clevis, but a lot more going on up here. We got a brass bead, triangle brass bead, then we've got a brass weight here. We got a lot of weight on this wire, and no weight back here except for the hooks on the actual fish or plastic. As you can see with this, there's 2 sets of hooks. Now, unlike the Roostertail, these hooks can't be modified in any way without really causing issues with the bait. The good thing, and the thing that I like with using these, is this hinge right here. This gives the plastic the ability to swim like a fish and actually move back and forth. You got the little fins that are thin rubber and really can give it an erratic action, make it, make it twist, make it move around, so that it really does mimic a dying bait fish. And with these, I kind of do a rip stop or rip retrieve, where I'll do a constant retrieve and then I'll snatch it, and it'll actually make these beads pop against each other, as well as the thumping of the spinner. So that it's a little different retrieve with these, and I've gotten really good success off of this style when I'm fishing in shallow rivers and wide creeks. This seems to really work well, especially in the upper rivers of Georgia, like the upper Chattahoochee, the Nantahala. in those areas. I've had real good success with this in the Etowah around Amicalola, where the waters stay cold and they actually stock trout. And I've caught a lot of different species on this. I've used both this one, which is, as you can see, a rainbow trout design, but they also offer a regular minnow shad type body, and I have had success with those too. Again, with anything that has the rubber plastics on the inline spinners, you really want to make sure that they've got the, the hinge right here and the knockers, because you can't hear them, but the wire gives them enough travel that in the water the fish seem to think they're pretty loud. But again, you really have to be careful. The wires are delicate, easily bent. You have to keep watch on them, especially ones like the MEPS, where this whole piece right here is just really one long wire. If it hits something, you're fighting a fish, these get bent. And they can, because you've got the beads, they actually wind up having to be replaced a lot sooner than the Roostertails inline, just because once this gets bent too much, these beads will not slide and your spinner won't slide up and down. But again, the manufacturers know this and they're priced accordingly. So, but this is the Comet Minnow from MEPS. Again, 2 sets of very sharp, sticky hooks. And yeah, definitely give it a try. So the next offering from MEPS is their XD Extra Deep. This one is an inline spinner. It's 1/4 ounce, but as you can see, that's a metal body. That's a teardrop shaped metal body. What's that about? Well, let's open it up and take a look at it. Alright, again, as with any new bait, you want all the hooks are sticky. But as we can see, again, it's got the MEPS XD stamped into the blade. And this one is more of the oval. This is I'm going to call it a hybrid between the Colorado and the Willow Leaf, because it does actually come to a shallower point closer down here than the Comet did. In fact, let me grab the Comet and let's just take a look at it. Okay, so here's the Comet, and here's the, as you can see, a little different, and not quite as long. The curvature on it is not quite as deep. This is pretty shallow. Again, standard thickness, not a real thick blade. Standard size wire. Again, just bent and wrapped around. But here's where everything gets different. We have a bead, we have a body, and we have a red bead. Now, interesting enough, the spinner and the bead are free floating, but the body is not. The body is attached and does not move. The bead is sitting in the bell of the body, and again attached straight to the hook. I wish these inline spinners would have the snap rings so that you could change the hooks, because there's a lot of different size hooks with the feathers attached like this that I believe could be very beneficial to this lure. Now, this is called the XD, the extra deep, and you can feel that it's weighted different. It's very tail heavy, which, given the design of the body, you would you would expect that. But the blade being a little bit different, this hybrid style blade, it allows for a slower retrieve and for this to run at a deeper depth. And where I use this is on deeper rivers like the Etowah River. I use this in deep holes on the Chattahoochee, upper Chattahoochee, and if I'm fishing, let's say at the mouth of the Blue Ridge, Lake Blue Ridge, where the river first comes in, I'll fish this there. I usually use this for the smaller bass, but mostly crappie is where I've had a real good success with this, believe it or not. The bass don't seem to really be interested in it, unless you get them in a very aggressive mood and a good feeding mood where you could throw bubble gum out there and pretty much catch anything you want. But again, this one is not on a clevis. It's just a hole stamped into the blade, and it's kind of it's hard to see, but it's actually a decent sized hole. So as this wire gets bent and straightened and bent and straightened, it takes a little bit longer before the free turning gets hindered. But it's all polished, very, very bright. It's really good for deep water where there's low light. It still reflects, and yeah. So this is the different offerings. Again, the bell design is very interesting. When I first used this, I really didn't have a lot of confidence in it to work. So when I actually did start catching fish with it, I was very surprised. Pleasantly surprised, but very surprised. So, and again, as you can see, we got a little mylar in there for flash of color. And to be able to change that would have been nice, so that I could change to, a hook with some red mylar in it, or just different colors, or even tie my own and be able to customize them the way that I want. Now, again, I'm pretty sure I've never tried it with these. I'm pretty sure I can do it like I do with the MEPS, and go ahead and cut that and put my own split ring on it, but I've never really tried it, so don't know. But maybe it's something you guys can try. Anyway, that's the XD Extra Deep inline spinner from Mepps. Give it a try. Let me know what you think. So we got a bonus. I was at Bass Pro Shop and I found this Nitro Thump. Again, it's an inline spinner with a huge blade and a huge body on it. This one is 3/8 ounce. I couldn't find one and a quarter to go along with the same size as the other inline spinners, but this thing is huge. I mean, there's my fingers. You can see how big the blade is. Let's open this thing up and see what we've got. Definitely packaged. Double packaged. Again, you got to be careful when taking them out of the package because the wires are just wire. So let's look at this. It's in a chartreuse orange. That blade is huge. I mean, huge. I would expect to find a blade like this on an actual spinner bait. Not sure of, the color pattern. Don't know that I would throw that in extreme clear water, but let's take a look at it. I have never thrown this, seen this. This is my first experience with it, so we're learning about this one together. Now, the body does turn, but it's affixed to the wire so it doesn't slide up and down, and it does have a red bead. Again, straight wired to the hook, so can't do much with that. But the back side of the blade is non-painted. It's silver, polished, and the top is painted. So, wow. The momentum that this has, I can feel as this thing is spinning, it's really wanting to throw that bait around. So, I would imagine that this would be something I might use in deeper water. With a blade that big on a bait that small, I would think that this would be a very slow retrieve. And like the XD by Mepps, it's probably a deep water inline spinner. So maybe if I was fishing humps or mouths of creeks and rivers into the lake, that might be where I would throw this, where there's drop-offs. I would probably use this on a cloudy day or when the water's a little stained. I definitely wouldn't throw this, in my opinion, I wouldn't throw this in very clear water because I don't think that it would be very effective. I believe that the bass would just see it and realize that it's not food and not go after it, not attack it. You might be able to get them on a reactionary just when they're on beds as a, defensive strike, but other than that, I think this would be a stained water, deep water type of bait. But I found it. It's an inline spinner. I wanted to include it with this as a bonus. So yeah, this is again it's called the Nitro Thump and it's Bass Pro Shops offering. So, and I think this one was quite a bit more expensive, about 1.5 times as expensive as the other inline spinners. But the quality is okay. The blade, that's a paint, not a powder coat, but the actual hardware is standard hardware, you know, good quality, and I believe it to last just as long as any of the others. Again, with all of them, most of it is contingent upon the wire and the hook. So those are what cause replacements the most. But again, that's the Nitro Thump by Bass Pro Shop. If you see them and want to check them out, I know I'm going to probably pick up a couple of other ones in different colors and give them a whirl and see how they work. So I wish you the best with it. Okay guys, so that's been the video on inline spinners. I hope you found it informative. I hope you found it interesting. If you did, please give us a thumbs up, leave us a comment, hit the notification bell, subscribe, make sure not to miss any of our future videos. If you want to see our past videos, please look at the videos in our channel, and we look forward to hearing from you. We appreciate all our comments and hope you get out there and have tight lines.